self-priming siphoning system. You fill the water up to the top and that's enough. It'll start by itself actually, even if you don't fill it up to the top. But the water pressure will start forcing the water through the tube. Once the water level gets below the top there, it'll keep on going during the because of the siphon process. And to slow the siphoning down, I pull some wool through there so it doesn't come out too quickly. Otherwise it would drain in a few minutes. Like this it takes hours. So it just slowly waters.
Excellent.
I've been doing sourdough for I think 6 years now, and this is the sourdough culture that has been going all that time, just been replenished all the time. And this is at the stage where you would want it looking like this to actually use it to make bread. So if you haven't seen what sourdough looks like when it's active, that's what it looks like. You see it's all bubbly and nice looking. Hello.
Calling for you. You can smell it.
And then it should smell vinegary because it does produce a vinegary.
Did you make mother culture?
You start it yourself. Yeah, I started that. It's easy to start, very easy to do yourself. If you want to do it yourself, or get some from somebody else. When I first started it, I did a bit of reading as everybody does about it, and you can buy stuff from different states in America, and they say this one's really good for this, this one's really good for that. But it's all rubbish because once you've got it in your environment, it'll revert to whatever the conditions are suited to the bacteria that's in there. So you might have had some bacteria which did something special, like in Oregon or somewhere. But when you grow it here, that bacteria will probably slowly die out and be replaced by other kinds of good bacteria in there. And so you'll end up with whatever suits the environmental conditions you're in. So you do it yourself is the best way to do it. So if you want to start it yourself, it's very easy, or easier way is to get somebody else. So if anybody wanted some today, you could take it away, no problem. But if you want to start it yourself, all you have to do is get some flour, plain flour, organic of course, plain organic flour. I do it by volume, so if you have it, say, start off with a teaspoon of flour and a teaspoon of water, put it in a jar. Next day, double it, 2 teaspoons of water, 2 teaspoons of flour, and after about 3 days, it'll start looking like that. And that's it, you've got your sourdough starter, and then you just keep on adding flour and water to it not every day, you don't have to, as often as you wanted to keep it going. So the pancakes you had today was from a sourdough starter I've got in a big jar in the fridge, which I haven't touched for about probably 2 weeks. So I haven't done anything to it, just stir it up again and made the pancakes out of it. So you don't have to do something every day, you can. If you want to make bread, then you want it to look like this when you're ready to make your bread. And to get it to look like that, what I do is, like last night, I had about that much sourdough starter in there, and so I put a half a cup of flour in, a half a cup of water to build it up to about there. And this morning it was bubbling away nicely, and then I did it again this morning about 7:30 in the morning, flour and water, another half a cup. Okay. If I was going to make bread out of that, I would do that. I would try to have it do about there, so that would be about a cup of flour and a cup of water. So what you're trying to do is, like, when you feed it, double what quantity you've already got. So if I wanted to do it for bread today, I would want to have this, because my recipe that I'm using now, I use one of these jar fulls of sourdough starter, so I know how much is in there.
So if you wouldn't be using all of it up, or do you save a little bit?
Oh, when I tip this out, what stays behind in there is enough.
Oh, okay.
Just what clings to the sides.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Once whatever's left clinging to the sides, you put another couple of teaspoons of flour, teaspoons of water in it. What I'm trying to do is, feed it at least twice in quick succession before I make the bread, to make sure it's nice and happy and active and healthy. Because if it's not, you'll end up with flat bread, or it's still edible, but it won't be great. Okay, so I try to plan it so that, like I said, last night I would have that much in it, build it up to there today, and then double it again today, and that would be what I would use to make my bread.
And this just sits on your bench? On your bench? Leave it out?
When I'm doing it for bread, just like the day before that. But the stuff that, if I don't have anything on the bench there, I'll get some out of the fridge that's might have been there for 2 weeks, and just put a little bit in the bottom of this jar there at night, flour and water. In the morning, more flour and water, and get it to the stage where it's ready to make the bread. So I can get it going within, easily within 24 hours from scratch.
So would you be able to do that with like a new culture, or because that's like an older culture, it activates quicker? Does
Well,
that make
yeah,
sense?
if you're starting from scratch with not, if you haven't got any of this to start with, it'll
Yeah.
take you 4 or 5 days before you
Okay.
can make a loaf of bread.
Rightio.
If you keep it going, you can make a bread, and you know, as long as you're planning 1 day in advance, you can make a loaf of bread
Okay.
whenever you want to, eventually.
Okay.
Alright, so when I want to make a loaf of bread, first of all, go back one step. The importance of measuring is that there's only consistency. So, you know, half a cup of flour, half a cup of water, whatever you do, just so it's consistent, so the thickness of it is the same every time you go to use it. So that whatever recipe you're using, you know it's going to be roughly the same every time you do it. If you put more water in, or than you did flour or something, it becomes more runny, then obviously that's going to affect the consistency of your bread dough when you're making it. So measuring it out with a cup, half a cup or quarter of a cup or whatever, and using the same one for your water, just to keep it consistent all the time. So my recipe at the moment is, I take one of these full of sourdough, I take 3 cups of flour, fill up the flour into the cup, just scrape it off the top with a knife so it's exactly a cup, not packed. Throw it in, throw that in, teaspoon of sugar, teaspoon of salt, that's it. And I do it in a bread maker to do the mixing. I couldn't be bothered doing it by hand, but you can't bake it in a bread maker. So it does the mixing for me, mixes it up, tip it out into, if I want to do a cob, don't use a bread tin, just a tray, baking paper on, just tip it out of the bread maker, that's it. Let it rise for 3-4 hours, whatever, watch it and it's about right. Bake it in the oven for 40 minutes, there's your bread.
What's your temperature?
I started off at 250, get a nice crust on it, and then drop it down to 200 after about 5 minutes, and do about 35 minutes at 200. If I do it in a bread tin, you get a different flavour bread, obviously, and it somehow, for some reason, it makes the texture a little bit different too, if you make it into a cob or a loaf. When I do it in the bread maker to do the mixing, as I said, I just tip it out. I might shape it with a paddle or something if it needs it. But half the time I don't do any second rising. You look at all the recipes, they say you do this, do this, do this. I've done all those things. It doesn't seem to make any difference to me to the bread, but sometimes I do it anyway. So after about an hour of it sitting, the first mix, I turn the bread maker on again and let it break it down. Then,
so no yeast? The
that is the
sourdough is the yeast. Yeah.
That's the difference between the bread you buy in the shop, normal bread, and sourdough is it's all natural yeast. The yeast is already there in the flour to begin with, that has been growing and growing and growing. Whereas the commercial bread is a chemical kind of yeast, and from what I've read, like half the people would say, "Oh, I've got gluten intolerance" or whatever. Half the people that don't have gluten intolerance, they are actually intolerant to the yeast that's been used to make the bread, because it's a fast-acting yeast and it's totally different to the yeasts that make sourdough.
So that would be what they used back in the day 150 years ago?
Yeah. We've all been sourdough bread back then. Yeah.
So in actual fact it's not sour at all?
It is. It's got a bit of a sour taste to it.
There's a bit of a...
Has it?
Yeah, it is a ferment. It is a ferment. Yeah.
Sometimes it's more sour than others, depends upon your recipe. Like when I first started making it, I didn't know what I was doing. It was really sour. Really sour.
When it rises, how much does it rise?
Like a normal loaf of bread, or at least double in size.
At least double. And then you give it a bit of a pump around with the mixing bit for the second.
First mix and that's it.
And that's it.
And it'll still go up. Sometimes I'll do the second rise, break it down and let it go again.
Yeah,
but it doesn't seem to make any difference to me. With a bread maker, it's so easy. It does all the work. I don't actually touch it at all. Because I tip it out onto the thing. And
I like that idea.
In the oven, so it's never been touched by hands.
So getting back to the comment you said in the beginning when you first started making it, it was very sour.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was? What have you done different since you started doing it?
Consistency.
To what you do now?
Consistency in what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing there. I was just experimenting, and I didn't know what the sourdough should look like when I make the bread. now I do, you know, and I look at it and say, well, no, that's not good. And that's why I brought this out here.
What's that one?
That's sourdough too. That would make a great pancake. That is sourdough that hasn't been fed since Wednesday. It's been sitting on the bench. And you can see the liquid that's got on the top. The stuff that I made the pancakes out of that this morning looked like that. It was in the fridge, only that actually goes sort of browny, grey colour. Apparently it's moonshine.
Can you actually resurrect that?
Hey?
Can you resurrect that?
Yeah, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Because that's
Stir
why I
it
brought
up.
it out. If you get a look at that, I've heard other people say, oh, it went off, you know, I had this liquid and I chucked it out. There's nothing wrong with that. Just mix it up again, put some more flour and water in it.
Can you just shake it in the jar, like,
Smell
or
like
would
it.
you mix
Really
Yeah,
it?
you put it if you want.
You could, okay.
Tomorrow, so I'd have to tip it out to about there, so that's why I tip it in the other jar for pancakes. When I want to make pancakes, the consistency is already there. There's no lumps in it. It's all right and everything. All I have to do
It's
is
already right there.
just add an egg to it, one egg, a bit of sugar,
And you don't add
drop
any
of
more
oil,
flour? No more
olive
flour.
oil. Hey?
No more flour.
No more flour.
Yeah.
It's already all done.
I know, it's like this.
Light bulb moment.
Flour's already in there.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, so you add your oil, you know, drop of oil, you don't have to. But I add a bit of olive oil to it, you know, just a splash. A little bit of sugar. If you don't add the sugar, you don't have to add the sugar either, but if you don't add the sugar, I find they don't brown very well, because I think the sugar caramelises what gives it the colour. So if you make them without the sugar, they're very pale looking.
You make them in a pancake maker?
No, just a frothing.
Oh, okay. Because they were so consistent in size.
Yeah, they were.
they were very impressive.
Yeah, I've got my bowl there with the sourdough in it for making the pancakes once it's mixed up, and I've got my measuring cup just hangs on the side. I fill it up and hang it on the side while I'm making a pancake, and the next time I've got exactly the right amount, just pour it in the middle of the fry pan.
But mine never end up in a circle. Mine go all over.
I will say.
Yeah, probably your consistency was too thin, probably. Yeah, you see your cup and just tip it in the middle of the fry pan, don't do anything, just tip it all in the middle and just spreads out all on its own.
When you make the bread, what's the dough like when you put it into the mixer part of it? Is it like a pizza dough, or is it a hard dough, or what sort of, is it a sloppy dough?
No, it's not sloppy. It should be, when you mix it, there should be something that you could, if you wanted to, handle without it all sticking to you.
Yeah, right, okay.
You know how
Firm.
people see kneading bread. That's what it should be look like. So, with like I said, my recipe of this with 3 cups of flour, I've got half a cup, just under half a cup of water, and then I look at it after it's been mixing for a while and say, oh, it looks a bit runny or it looks a bit dry. You know, so I might add a teaspoon of water or 2 teaspoons of flour until it looks about right.
Right, okay. So, but it's your own personal judgment.
Yeah, when you're mixing it, like the bread maker, it should be trying to make it into a ball.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just sort of slopping around and the battle's going around and it's just a sea around it, well, it's obviously way too wet.
Yeah.
Right? And if the bread maker can't turn it, it's too dry.
Yeah.
You hear it straining when it's at the right consistency. It's just going, but it's under a bit of effort to do it. Yeah, you can make big space with it. This makes a cake with it too. You can make cakes out of sourdough. It's not much different. It's not as soft. It's like, after eating sourdough bread all the time, you get a normal loaf of bread and it's cardboard. It's soft and pasty. Sourdough's got a different texture. It's more firm, but it's still, you know, there's nothing beats fresh sourdough bread with a bit of butter on it. Every time I make it, I've got to have a piece straight away. You know?
It's like cake.
Cut that end off.
It is beautiful.
Love it with fresh butter.
But the next day, it's not. Like, it's only good that day if you want to eat it fresh, and it's beautiful. But the next day, it's
okay for toast next day.
Yeah, toast is fantastic toast.
Breadcrumbs.
So you don't waste it still. It makes terrific toast, and it takes like twice as long to toast as a normal bit of bread. If you put a normal bit of bread in and a bit of sourdough in, when it pops up, the normal bread might be brown. That sourdough doesn't look like it's even done anything yet. You've got to do it twice before it browns up. It just shows you the difference. It's still flour, or was flour. The difference chemically in the final product. And I can keep sourdough in the fridge. I've never had it go mouldy. You know, sometimes I've had a loaf in there, part of a loaf in there for 12 days. It's still okay. Make a piece of toast out of it. It's still the same as if you made it 2 days after it'd be in the fridge. It's still the same.